I want to welcome everybody to the November 4th Planning Commission meeting, and we have our public announcement.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the District Court.
Thank you. Our first item today on the agenda is approve the minutes of the PAC meeting on October 21st.
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion to approve and I got a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Abstain.
You abstain?
Abstain.
Mr. Chairman, we've got two individuals that we show weren't present, and that is Joe Johnson and Mr. Warren.
Yes.
And we believe that Joe Johnson made the motion, so we may need to redo that.
I can't do that.
I'll make the motion. I did the second.
Mr. McKay made the motion now.
I'll second it.
Mr. Hartman seconded it. All in favor say aye. I guess we all said aye already. And then the
Aye.
opposed,
One abstain.
Mr. Warren abstained. Now we're going to go through the agenda, see what items we can take on consent. First item is 2.1, subdivision 2021-00044, one-step final plat, Rodriguez Edition, located on Kansas and 37th Street North. Anybody on the commission want to hear this item? Seeing none, anybody in the audience want to hear this? Anyone in virtual want to hear this item? Hearing none, we'll take that on consent. The next one's 2.2, subdivision 2021-00045, single, one-step final plat, located on the east side of North Arkansas and 37th Street North. Anybody on the commission want to hear this? Seeing none,
So moved. Second.
Second.
got a motion to approve by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Hartman. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Carries unanimously. Okay, now the public hearings, item 2021-00045, county conditional use for a single vehicle RV campsite on property zone rural, WR, rural residential. 103rd Street West and quarter mile south of West 103rd Street.
There's 3-1.
We skipped one.
I did. I'm trying to hurry. Let's back up to 3.1, vacation case 2021-00042. City requests to vacate a portion of a platted complete access control on light industrial zoning located on the west side of Hoover and on the south side of West 31st Street South. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody in the audience want to hear this case? Anybody virtual? We'll take that on consent. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion to approve by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Hartman. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, now we can, thanks for your help. Now we'll move back to 4.1. Single vehicle RV campsite on rural residential zoning. Anybody on the commission want to hear this item? Anybody in the chamber here would like to hear this item? Anybody virtual want to hear this case?
Yes.
Could I have? Well, could you give us your name?
Dan Barnes?
You're not the applicant, right?
Right, I'm not.
Okay. Okay, we'll hear this case. Okay, the next one's 4.2. 2021-00046, conditional use to allow accessory apartment on property zone SF5 at 1747 South Santa Fe. Is there anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Is there anybody in the chamber want to hear this case? Anybody virtual? Anybody virtual? We take that on consent. 4.3, 2021-00047, and zoning case 2021-00015. This is a parking area for some residents. This particular case, there was a new staff report that was handed out today. And basically, it went in front of the DAB. They had a couple things they wanted to add to it, protective overlay and restrict the height. Staff didn't have that in their requirements. I think staff's agreed to do that now so they match up with what the DAB recommended. But I'll let
What I
Matt.
would say is we do have somebody in the audience that wants to hear this case, so I
okay,
can present
we'll
it.
hear it then. Okay, the next one's CUP 2021-00053. And this is amendment CUP DP 278 to permit car wash on property zone LC. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody here in the chamber want to hear this case? Anybody virtual want to hear this case? Seeing none, we'll bring that back on consent.
Move to approve agenda items 4.2 and 4.4.
Second. Foster.
Motion to approve 4.2 and 4.4 by Mr. Warren, second by Ms. Foster. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, we're going to leave the planning commission meeting for a minute and go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. First item on the agenda for that is approve the meeting minutes of October 7th.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion to approve the minutes by Mr. Warren, second by Ms. Foster. Any discussion?
I abstain. I wasn't there.
Hartman believes he was not here for that.
Also Commissioner Blick and Cindy Miles.
I abstain as well.
I abstain also.
And Mr. Chairman, can we get a clarification about whether or not Josh Blick is online and whether he's abstaining?
See him.
Okay, I do not show him participating then.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? And then what do we got, 3 abstentions? 2. Okay. Okay, the next case is BZA 2021-00049. Variance to permit an increase in height for an off-site sign in LI zoning. Applicant or agent? Oh, staff, let's have staff first.
Bill Longnecker, Senior Planner, Current Plans, BZA 2021-49. We've got 2 variance requests on this particular case. The applicant is asking for increase in height of an off-site sign on limited industrial property. He's wanting a 55-foot tall sign on this particular site. The limited industrial zoning district allows a 30-foot tall sign by right in this zoning district, off-site sign, and by administrative adjustment, you could, at this particular site, you could increase that to 31.7 feet. So the applicant's looking to get that additional height up to 55 feet. And then also the applicant is asking to exceed the sign code's minimum sign face of 14 feet tall, and they're asking for 18 foot 7.25 inches. Now, the rest of the sign, as they've presented it, meets the standards for the length. It's less than that, and also for the thickness of it. So we've got 2 variances to consider here. Looking at the zoning map, you can see that the limited industrial zone site, the Lot 1 Overhold Edition, is located on the northwest corner of South Victoria and East 49th Street South, approximately 670 feet west of the South Hydraulic Avenue KTA I-35 overpass, which you can see there on your zoning map. Hydraulic is a block east of this particular site. The purpose of the site is to advertise a quick trip that is located a block north and a block and a half. It's located on the southwest corner of Hydraulic and 47th Street, block and a half northwest of here. Now, the KTA 135 overpass is just that. It's not an interchange, so you cannot exit off of KTA 135 onto Hydraulic to get to the Quick Trip. The nearest exit that would get you to the Quick Trip is the 47th Street exit off of KTA 135, which you can see is over on the left-hand side of the zoning map. Looking at the properties around here, you'll see that most of the properties are zoned predominantly LI Limit Industrial, and we've got a mix of uses. In regards to the north, we've got truck terminal, warehouse, service garage, paint, shop detail, phone service, phone company, garage, and then we've got the Quick Trip, which is zoned GC. We also have another convenience store located just 2 blocks west of the Quick Trip on 47th Street South also. Looking at the south, you can see you've got East 49th Street South, and then you've got the KTA 135 right-of-way. Looking to the east, across South Victoria, you've got LISF, single-family residential and general commercial zoning. We've got a truck terminal warehouse, 2 single-family residences, which happen to be over 400 feet away from the particular site. And then we've got, to the west, we've got limited industrial zoning, and we've got a cluster of office warehouses there. So the site itself, on its cased history, it was recorded as the Overholt Edition September 20th, 1967. Also on this site in 2015, BZA 2005-15 was an administrative adjustment that permitted a 31.6-foot tall off-site sign on the subject site. And they applied for an administrative adjustment, which allowed them to get that extra 1.7 feet over the 30-foot maximum for that LI zoned site. This particular sign was located approximately 60 feet northwest of the proposed site and is not in the platted setbacks. Can we have the next slide, please? The site right now is vacant. It is not as busy as it appears on the aerial. And it should be noted that this particular site is the south portion of Lot 1, Overholt Edition. Could we have the next slide, please? That shows uses in the area as projected. Could we have the next slide, please? There is a site plan presented by the applicant's agent. As you can see, they've pointed out the site of the former off-site sign, and they're also showing the proposed site for this off-site sign that we are considering today. Also notice that the proposed site is in platted setbacks per the sign code. Off-site signs need to be located off of these setbacks. So we do have a variance case that is associated with this case that will be considered by the subdivision committee next Wednesday instead of Thursday because of the holidays. So that will be in consideration in regards to vacating that setback so they can get closer to the right-of-way. Again, the purpose of the sign is to advertise the Quick Trip, which is located block and a half northeast of here off of Hydraulic and 47th Street South. The site itself, as far as the uniqueness, the applicant has stated that the subject site is unique because of the proximity to elevated grade of South Hydraulic Avenue, KTA I-35 overpass. Could we have a next slide, please? There's the sign itself, which we discussed earlier. You can see what the purpose of the sign is. You've got the corporate logo, QT, and then you have the gas and the full fuel prices below it. So that is what it's going to look like. Can we have the next slide, please? Looking east of the site, you can see the warehouse truck terminal. And you can also see 49th Street, East 49th Street South, which is a sand and gravel road. Can we have the next slide, please? This is looking east of the site. You're looking back towards that overpass, the hydraulic KTA I-35 overpass over a hydraulic. You can also see a stand of mature trees that are located along the north side of the 49th Street South right-of-way. Can we have the next slide, please? Southeast of the site, just more development, basically, and you're also seeing some utilities that runs parallel to Victoria. Can we have the next slide, please? Looking straight south, you can see that the KTA 135 is elevated above the particular site. And you can see on the right-hand side of this site, you can see the corner of the subject site itself. Next slide, please. Looking west of the site, you can see some KTA 135 signs that give the notification that you're coming up to the 47th Street South KTA 135 interchange and exit. Next slide, please. Let's have the next slide. Okay, let's go back. All right, the applicant has provided some slides that I've given you that show a conception showing the sign itself as it would appear to motorists as they're coming onto that site. We will say that the site itself, in regards to the staff evaluation according to the uniqueness, you're looking at basically you're looking at trying to advertise that exit without telling people where it's at. You've got that corporate logo, and you've got the fuel prices, and then as you can see, you're trying to get to that 47th Street South and 135 KTA I-35 exit, which begins, that lane begins about 400 feet just to the west of the site itself. Looking at the hardship, the adjacent properties, we've gone over that in regards to what they have there. We're also looking at the fact that we do, as I mentioned, have illuminated KTA I-135 signs that give direction, exit distance, and road information, that as opposed to the proposed off-site sign which lights up Quick Trip Corporation logo and fuel prices. And the KTA 135, KTA I-35 signs are, we have one just as you approach the hydraulic KTA I-35 overpass. That does not advertise Quick Trip as you're heading west, but it does advertise some motels that are located off of 47th and the KTA I-35 exit. We've also noted that you do have a similar sign that advertises Quick Trip off of the I-135 hydraulic exit, which is about 1.5 miles north of here. That advertises Quick Trip. That's in the right-of-way, the I-135 right-of-way, and it advertises the Quick Trip both to traffic both going east and west from there, and it advertises the exit to get off to. So that's another type of signage you can look at in regards to advertising what services are ahead for you. Looking at the hardships involved, the applicant says the strict application of the sign code will constitute an unnecessary hardship to the subject property because the I-35 grade and mature trees combined with a 31-foot height limit as permitted simply does not give enough notice for drivers as they approach it in regards to making a decision about exiting to that quick trip. Again, the quick trip sign as presented gives no exit information or its location. It advertises the quick trip itself and their fuel prices. The hardship is not on, it's for the quick trip itself located off of Hydraulic and 47th in regards to one, it doesn't have any type of advertisement as you're going on KTA I-35, you're south or you're exiting off of the 47th Street exit. So the hardship itself for the quick trip shop is they don't have any advertisement in regards to that traffic as opposed to off of I-135 and Hydraulic where they do have advertisement inside that I-135 right-of-way. So looking at what we have here, I mean, we don't have any other signs, off-site signs in the area. We're looking at, staff was looking at what was presented to them, and we could not determine with what was presented to us what, if this presentation was to scale in regards to give us some dimensions so we could tell just how high up we needed to go. The methodology we're looking at, as we note in the staff report, would be, similar to, here's the overpass, tell us what the height of the overpass is at the top rail with the ground level. Here's the ground level for the sign, show us what that is, and then show the height of the sign above that ground level and compare it to the height of the top railing of your overpass there to give us an idea just, do we really need 55 feet here? That's the question, and as presented, this staff member could not determine if 55 foot was needed. So we're asking for dimension control in regards to giving us some scale to determine what is needed here on this property. We did have a sign here that was permitted by administrative adjustment, an off-site sign back in 2005. It's no longer here. I'm not sure why it was removed. But that was operating at 31.6 feet, which was 0.1 less than what would be permitted by administrative adjustment. So we feel like we could make a recommendation based on what we've got. The applicant and I have talked about methodology, and I'm not quite sure about the methodology. However, Mr. Lindeback, the agent, is here and he can explain it to you. I mean, looking at programs that we could use per scale besides using a surveyor, which is what we proposed, you do have certain software out there that can allow you to draw with dimensions in regards to presenting us with something that we could confirm that we need a sign this tall. Something like Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, CorelDRAW, Adobe CAD, something like that, just to give us something on this 3D rendition to scale so we can actually see how much of it needs to go above, how much of it needs to be seen as you're having that overpass and that mature trees. And as it is, we cannot determine it. I'll let Mr. Lindeback speak on the methodology, but you've got our recommendation down, and I'll stand for questions.
Any questions of Bill?
Bill, early on in your comments, you referenced subdivision. Can you clarify that for me?
Well, okay, we've got a subdivision case up next week, and that is a case to vacate all of the platted 35-foot setback that runs parallel to 49th Street South. And the applicant, as we saw on the site plan, could you go back to his site plan, please? The applicant wants to place the proposed sign inside those setbacks. Well, the sign code says you can't be placing off-site signs into setbacks. So as we know, since it's a platted setback, the only way you can reduce that setback would be to go through the vacation process, a separate process than what we've got today. So, without giving away anything on that case, the limited industrial zoning does allow 0 setbacks along street side yard, which in this case would be 49th Street South. So that's a consideration, a separate process than what we've got today, but it is associated with this case in regards to placing this sign. Now, what's critical about that is when you look at your signs, you've got to look at the elevation the sign is placed on. So we're looking at that particular site that's shown on the site plan, which is inside the 35-foot setback. And if you eliminate all that setback, then you've got the possibility of the elevation for the sign changing in regards to, well, here's what we've got as we know where it's going to be placed today. We know the elevation has been stated for the sign. If you remove that setback, you've got the possibility of that sign going further away from the corner, which could change the elevation of that sign, which could change the recommendation of this body. So that's what's going on with the vacation case, which will be taken in consideration by Sub D next Wednesday.
Any other questions? Applicant or agent?
Could I have you, okay, that slide will work. I'd just like to make a couple statements before I go through the presentation. We filed this case over 2 months ago. I received a staff report in my office on Monday, which is the same time that this presentation is required. I just would let you know that I did not hear that there was concern about the validity of the methodology used, and should I have known that, I would have provided more information not only in the presentation, but I will present that today. But I would have also provided that to staff early on, so I just want to make that just overriding comment before we start the presentation. So there's some timing issues here. So looking at our first slide, if you could advance to the zoning slide there. I think everybody knows where the Quick Trip is. If you don't, I don't know, do I have a way I can control this? All right, so the Quick Trip is located right here. It was built in around 2015, so it's a new Generation 3 Quick Trip. They do have plans, significant plans to alter this Quick Trip to provide for diesel services. As you know, this is an interstate corridor, KTA 35. There are 4 exits to Wichita, this being the last exit. So I think that's important to note. This sign is a critical piece of their operation. I would say that if this sign is not approved, it will definitely hinder the project and may shut down the diesel project altogether. So I think that's an important consideration. As most of you know, and I think it's well known in the community, Quick Trip is a cherished and recognizable and sought after brand, especially travelers and truck drivers alike across the country. I don't know if you've been traveling recently, but Quick Trip is expanding their footprint across the entire country. Right now, it's increased stores in Colorado and other places. I do have with me a gentleman from Quick Trip. He has traveled here from Tulsa. His name is Jake Barron, and he can answer any specific questions as to the market conditions and the importance of this sign. But if you could slide on to the next one there. So that, of course, there's the sign that we're proposing. This is a sign that's used throughout Quick Trip in their organization. But if you could advance to the next slide. The uniqueness of this sign is that the yellow box there represents the 14 feet So we're asking for that additional 3.6 feet roughly to get the advertising of the fuel prices. And more specifically, the diesel prices are critical as well. Next slide, please. This is, of course, the site plan. I did kind of highlight this a little bit to help you point out that this is the existing, or was the existing sign that was removed. It was approved by the BZA. My understanding it's actually an adjustment, so it didn't go through the BZA itself, but it was increased in height. And as you can kind of tell, that is the large double-sided full-size billboard that would be 48 feet by the 14 feet. So this is a significantly smaller footprint. I think that's an important thing to point out here. We've got about 230 square feet, which I think if you're tracking the billboards, I think they're 640 some odd square feet. So this is a significantly smaller sign that we're requesting for this location. The only uniqueness is that it's much taller. Next slide, please. And like I said, as you know, this is the last exit to Wichita, headed to Oklahoma City on I-35. This is a sign that will aid travelers. Well, I guess I might also add that as a community, we should encourage the travelers to stop and shop and enjoy our goods and services. There are no other billboards in the area of this interchange. It's unique in that fact. If you go to many of the other interchanges on this corridor, there are several other billboards and off-site signs for advertising our goods and services here in Wichita. But this would definitely aid, people knowing that this is the time that they can exit, the last exit there. This sign will aid, like I said, aid the travelers and truck drivers alike in their decision-making. If the sign were shorter, it would be ineffective due to the curve and elevation of the substantial trees along I-35 where the exit is located. The tops of the trees are at 35 feet, and this is going into 36 feet. We're an engineering firm, as you probably well know, MAPC Engineering. We are a multidisciplinary engineering firm. We actually have data for all of Wichita that has 3D data, both of the ground as well as the vertical elements in the trees. We also have additional subscription data that we subscribe to that gets us more current data, both vertically and horizontal. So we've used many different data to confirm and help us in this process. You don't necessarily see it here, but we certainly do. So like I said, the tops of the trees are 36 feet tall, which would completely obscure the sign as you round the curve at this point. Next slide, please. And this is moving a little bit closer. As you get to the bridge, it becomes more apparent where the sign is. Next slide, please. This is, you can't probably read this, but on the presentation right here, this is the location of that first slide. It's about 1,200 feet from the exit. That gives you, from that point, about 9.3 seconds to make a decision if you're going 75 miles an hour to get on or off. As you'll note there in the sign there that has the lodging, I kind of blew it up and showed you what that looks like. It's not, there's good reasoning for that sign there. It helps direct people off the highway in a safe manner. And what we're looking to do is to increase that safety factor by about 5.5 seconds by having that sign visible at this 1,200 feet. As you can see, the highway does bend to the north. We're not trying to advertise up along that section of the highway. We're really just trying to help motorists know that, hey, here's where the exit is. And sometimes exits as you're traveling can sneak up on you and go right by you. So at 75 mile an hour, That's 110 feet per second. That's 9.3 seconds for you to maneuver to this point. This is a point where the exit lane starts. KTA has recently updated this exit, lengthening the exit lane to the east, adding a light pole, which you'll see in the next slide, and a new overhead signage, this assisting motorists with a safer deceleration lane. The idea is to help people get off without slowing up traffic, but also give people more time to make that transition of slowing their vehicles down. The length of the exit lane is now approximately 625 feet, so roughly right about here is where the exit lane stops. So if you add those two distances together, it adds another 5.7 seconds of time to decide. So if you were to do the math, 5.7 plus or subtracted 5 second, I'm saying this would, if you're at this bridge, you'll be able to see that sign at that bridge. But if we were to take off this section here, that's another 5.5 seconds, which is a significant amount of time. I think you all agree as you're driving down the road, there's quite a bit of conversation that can happen that time as to whether you should get off or not with your children and others. So overall, there's a total of 15 seconds from this point to this point of time that a motorist could see that sign and decide to exit the highway. So if, like I said, if we shorten that to just here with a shorter sign, we're giving the motorist only 5 seconds to get off the highway. Next slide. So again, here are the new improvements that were added here just recently. I've given you 2 different views on these signs. This is looking to the north. Our site is right here. The sign would be sitting roughly here. This is a 115-foot tall light pole. I think that's relevant in this case. Those lights are big and it kind of...
Mr. Linderback, your time's up.
Okay, I'd like some more time. I think this is an important issue that it shouldn't have much. I only have a few more slides here to go through.
2 minutes?
Sure, thank you. So this is a 115-foot tall light pole. I think it speaks to some of the character along a highway. Again, the signs are on the highway are 35 foot tall, and the new signs, again, aiding traffic to exit. Next slide, please. This is a site that's nearby, not in Wichita, and the relevance of this sign is that it's quick trip as well. Next slide, please. Note that that is a 91-foot tall sign, so significantly taller than our sign. Not quite double, but it's getting close to double. And this geometry has a very similar characteristic. This motorist, if you were to turn into the exit lane, has about 15 seconds from being able to view the sign to the turn lane. So they've got similar amount of time to get off the highway. I think a couple other things I wanted to make mention of. If you could go to I don't think there's another slide there, but if you could go back to slide 8. One more. Yeah, this one. I think just to reiterate the uniqueness of this is that we want to create a safer environment for motorists as they prepare to exit the highway. If we give them more time to get off the highway safely and to be able to see the sign, it'll make for a safer environment. So that speaks to the public interest part of this equation. The adjacent properties, this is definitely an industrial area, and it is a major interchange, as we've talked about. That's very typical to have these tall of signs at major entrances onto the highways. So that's speaks to the intent, spirit and intent. And then the hardship, if the sign weren't produced at this location, we would have some economic hardship potentially from the benefited property and some possible economic loss as well from that as well. So hopefully that helps you with some of the unique characteristics of this site. I think probably the most notable is the
Mr.
elevation.
Linderback, guess what?
Okay, yeah, just the uniqueness is we've got this curved highway that we don't normally have here. So I'd stand for any questions.
Any questions?
So you talked, early on, you talked about the height of those trees. And you said, I think you said they're 36 feet tall.
That's right.
So whose property are they located on?
They're in, I believe, right-of-way.
So they're just voluntary elm trees?
I don't know I don't know what kind of trees they are, but they are.
I'm just telling you that's what they are. so-
Okay, very good, yeah. There are trees there.
They're probably, if it's not addressed, they'll probably end up being about 50 to 60 feet tall in another 10 years. Unless somebody poisons them and they die.
Sure.
So if they weren't there, you wouldn't need a sign any taller than 35 feet, but you need a sign 55 feet because of the trees, is what I understood you to say.
That's
right?
one of the major components over there, and if you on one of those slides, the previous slide, you can kind of see that, yes.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thanks. Is there anyone else here want to speak on this item? Here in the chamber? Anybody virtual? Bring it back to the commission for discussion. Mr. Warren.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be in favor of the recommendation, or the request for a 55-foot sign. I just got back from a trip back east, did a lot of miles. More than once, I passed an intersection where I would have liked to have stopped if I had seen the sign soon enough. There are a number of states back east where they've restricted the height of signs for whatever reasons, aesthetic reasons, I'm assuming. But it didn't help me when I was traveling on the road at slightly more than 75 miles an hour. And so it's important that they be able to see that, be able to make that decision in a timely manner. So I think this is necessary for this location.
Any other discussion?
I don't have
This
a
is
problem.
Joe.
I don't have a problem with it either. So Park City must have a different sign ordinance, I guess. They got a 60-foot sign up there on I-35, is that right?
91.
The what I heard him say? 90? How tall is the one up at Park City? 90? Was that about 61st and I-35? Why do we have such a difference between Park City and Wichita? I'm just curious.
Have to
Did
talk
we-
to Park City about
Not
that.
germane to the conversation? Okay. All right.
I also think that the sign in this particular location is not going to offend anybody particularly, especially with what was the height of the light pole there. I'd like to move, if people are ready for it, move to approve the request as requested by the applicant.
Second.
Second. I'd like to make a comment.
I got a motion to approve by Ms. Foster, second by
Joe Johnson.
Cindy Miles. Joe, go ahead.
Comment? Yeah, I'll support this, but I think signs are becoming less important for truckers and the population in general, just because of GPS systems and stuff we have in our cars. If somebody wants a gas station, they're probably going to plug it in and tell them exactly how to get there. Just a comment.
Any other discussion? Yes, Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to point out that since this is a BZA case, it's a little bit different in terms of recommendation and taking action. And so I don't know if it's possible, but if you'd like to modify your action to find that all 5 conditions necessary to the granting of the variance have been found to exist, and then likewise, there are some conditions that are highlighted under the recommendation, under the recommendation then, such as providing a scaled exhibit, increasing the height, obtaining all the necessary permits, and then it shall comply to all other requirements of the Wichita Sign Code.
So you want me to basically do the 5 findings, or to agree with the letter from MKEC, or how detailed do you want this to be?
I would say at a minimum that I would recommend that you find that all 5 conditions necessary for the granting of a variance have been found by the BZA. And then we've got in here that the condition that they would provide a scaled exhibit, number 2, that would become part of the record. Number 2, that it would allow for the increase in the height. Number 3, that they would be required to obtain all necessary permits. And number 4, that they would continue to comply with the other requirements of the sign code.
Okay, so the motion needs to be to approve the application with the 4 conditions listed under the recommendation of staff, and with the statement that the 5 conditions for variance have been met. Does that do it?
Very much so, thank you.
Okay, that's my motion.
I would amend my.
And I second that motion,
Okay?
just like she said it.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Item is approved.
Thank you.
Now we'll go back to the Planning Commission to item 4.1.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kathy Morgan for the Planning Department. This is a conditional use request for a recreational vehicle to be placed on a parcel for medical assistance for a family member. The parcel is 4 3/4 acres. And so it has plenty of room to support this request. This is not the first one, request for a recreational vehicle campground in the county. This is probably the 3rd one that I've presented to the commission. Next, please. The aerial, and this lot has quite a few trees on it. This is the main structure. The recreational vehicle is going to be placed in this area. And as you can see, there's a lot of screening from the existing trees. You have a tree line on the south property line and tree line on the east property line. This across the street is not visible, or at least when I took the pictures, it was not visible from this location. Next. And as you can see, it's rural residential. It does meet or complies with the community investment plan for the county. The conditions, go to the next slide, please. This is the site plan. They will be, there's a new well here and an existing lagoon. And so they have made arrangements for this location to be hooked into the existing water and sewer system. Next. This is the white flags indicate where the RV is going to be located, looking This is looking north on the property. Next. This is looking west toward the house across the street. Next. This is looking toward the main structure at the southwest corner of the main structure. Next. This is looking west on the property, just in front of the trees that are surrounding where the RV site is. Next. Looking northeast on the property from the RV, location of the RV. Next. This is looking at the front of the house, the main structure, looking southeast. Next. And this is looking southwest from the driveway in front of the garage of the main structure. Next. And this is looking from the driveway in front of the main structure to the property across 103rd Street. Next. I think that might be it. Okay. So staff is recommending approval of this request with conditions that the RV campground is for one vehicle only. Tent camping is not permitted. The recreational vehicle campground has to be developed and maintained in compliance with the site plans, the design and type of RV approved by the planning department. There were attachments in your packet that showed the style of the RV and the exterior materials. The conditional use would be declared null and void after a period of 30 days that the RV was not on site. And also, if the property owner would transfer ownership, the conditional use is voided for the RV campground. And then the on-site water and wastewater services is typical of what we require in the county, and obtaining the needed permits. As I said, this application is not unlike several that the Planning Commission has heard already this year, and so staff is recommending approval. I did receive an email on Monday that the neighbors had signed an objection to the conditional use for the RV. So, and I believe there was somebody on virtually that wanted to speak to that, and the applicant is in the audience. But I will answer any questions.
Any questions of staff? Mr. Moore?
Yeah, in the packet, you did include a drawing. This is the size more like the size of an RV, but the styling is more like a mobile home because it's on wheels and it can be towed by a vehicle. That's why it is
right
sets up as an RV.
That's correct.
The other question I've got, if I'm understanding it, what you just said, if the owner of the property sells the property, they cannot sell this and leave this on there as a...
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And I'm sure the owner can explain a little bit more about that, but the conditional use would not go with the property, which is generally the case.
If they wanted to, what kind of
RV
process would they have to go through if they wanted to leave it as a permanent situation?
They would have to reapply. They would have to reapply for the RV campground to extend that, or to leave the vehicle in place, or the RV in place.
Thank you.
Kathy, and the main reason, again, that it's not an accessory dwelling unit is because the wheels will stay on, but it'll be on a permanent foundation?
Well, it's the definition of what a recreational vehicle is listed as in the zoning code. It's, an RV is designed as a temporary living quarters that has a body which not exceeding 8 feet in height and a body length not exceeding 40 feet. They have their own power, are designed to be drawn or mounted on a motor vehicle, so that, you're right, it's the wheels, it's the chassis that makes this an RV instead of an accessory dwelling.
Any other questions?
I just have a strange question. So is there a minimum? I mean, can you have an 8-foot tiny home on wheels?
Well, that would be an RV.
You said,
Yeah, maximum.
I heard maximum, I didn't hear minimum. Is there
Yeah.
a minimum? I'm asking.
Not that I'm aware.
Could be 8 foot if you wanted to. I guess.
Yeah. I don't think you could purchase one at that length, but maybe so. But there's no minimum, it's a maximum.
Any other questions? Mr. McKay?
Kathy, you mentioned height.
Yes.
Did I hear you say right, 8 feet?
That's what the Unified Zoning Code says.
8 feet.
But it's not from grade to the top, it's from the chassis. So, JR, do you have any additional comments on that?
Well, I'm just looking at this drawing.
Right.
That's going to be a bit higher than 8 feet.
Any other questions?
Maybe the applicant.
Yeah. Well, and then too, this is, how do I want to say this? This recreational vehicle is going to be tied down. I don't think the maximum or the height, that's just a general general statement about what these RVs are, because if you get a fifth wheel trailer, they're more than 8 feet in height.
That's my point. I don't
Yeah.
want these people tied down because it can't be any higher than 8 feet tall.
Yeah. Yes, it will be.
Question.
It will be tied down, and it's going to be put on a slab and be tied down.
So if we say approval of this, it's with the exemption of the 8-foot height requirement?
Scott?
I'm sorry, this is just a clarification question. Kathy, in the 8 feet height, in the staff report, I see 8 feet in width. I didn't see 8 feet height.
You know what? You're right. I apologize. It's 8 feet in
That's the reason I asked
width.
the question.
Yeah, sorry. I said 8 feet in height. It's 8 feet in width. Thank you, Scott.
Any other questions? Thank you, Kathy. Applicant or agent, please.
I apologize, I've never been to one of these meetings, I'm not sure of the protocol. Do I start speaking?
Give us your name and address, please. You got 10 minutes.
Stanford Greer, 10634 South 97th Street West. And the purpose of this RV is not really an RV, it's a tiny home. Our son, who has lived with us for 10 years, has had serious medical conditions. He has 5 serious medical conditions all combined, which caused lots of health problems for him over the years. He's gradually getting better, and he's now approaching the point where he will be able to live on his own. But he needs transitional housing. One of his doctors recommended transitional housing where when he was able to work, he worked in construction and he built homes, but now this is a tiny home. He has the plans and he has the skills and the tools to build this, but he wants to build his own house. And then, this is end-of-life planning for my wife and I. We need him to move into that transitional housing. At the current time, one of his medical conditions sometimes needs our intervention within 2 minutes to save his life. And so we could get out to that tiny home within that time frame to do what's necessary to keep him alive. Now, that's gradually getting better. When that gets to the point to where he can be farther away, the plan, ultimate plan, his sister and brother live in Kansas City, and his sister is a family practice doctor, and she wants to take over his medical care. Sorry if I'm getting choked up here. She wants to take over his medical care, at which time we would pull that up to Kansas City, and he would live near her. Now, why this is important is 2 years ago, I received a devastating medical diagnosis that I don't know how much time I have left, but we need to get him in transitional housing before I die. So my neighbors have, for some reason, injected themselves into our private family medical problems. We're very private people. I've never revealed my diagnosis to anybody except you all, but they have forced me to do that, and I'm sorry. That's not who I am. I'm a private person, but so that's what we're after. We're trying to take care of our son who has serious medical problems, and I also have serious medical problems. And so when I die, my wife will sell the house, the RV will move to Kansas City. Or if he reaches the point to where he is able to be without medical intervention for a certain number of minutes to be determined by his doctors, then we would also, even before we sell the house, he would move it to Kansas City. So this is intended as temporary only. It's not intended as a zoning change, as our neighbors have claimed. We're not trying to pull anything. We're trying to go by the book. So, any questions?
You agree with staff comments then? Do you agree with the staff comments?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anybody in the commission chambers wish to speak on this item? How about anybody virtual want to speak on this item?
This is Dan Barnes.
What's your address, sir?
10750 South 90th Street West.
Okay, you got 3 minutes.
Good. So the bottom line is we don't want campsites in that particular neighborhood. It has nothing to do with Mr. Greer and any of his issues. But given the fact that he did bring up the medical conditions, 2 minutes for him to get out there, and given his state, might be a stretch. The other side of it is, if this is eventually going to be moved to Kansas City, my question is, why not build it there now, or is there a place for it in Kansas City? So that's the concern. All the other stuff that's going on, I don't know where it's coming from, but that's my concern, and I think that's primarily the neighbors' concerns as well. We just don't want that type of thing in the neighborhood, and that's the end of it. I'm done.
How far away from where this will be located do you live?
I'm at the end of the cul-de-sac, so probably 1,000 feet, give or take.
Okay.
500, 600 feet.
All right, thank you. Any questions, Speaker? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else virtual want to speak on this item?
My name is James Figueroa.
Your address, please.
10700 South 97th Street West.
Okay.
And there is nothing against standing in scale. The only issue we have is the rezoning. Because if we rezone, that sets a precedent for other neighbors to rezone. And we do not want into our neighborhood. Because we moved into this home 15 years ago with the understanding that, this is a rural residential, which means that we have single-family homes, not mobile homes or trailer homes like an RV park. And the biggest thing is we just don't want to set a precedent that it's okay to be able to have a bunch of RV pads in our neighborhood. That's all I have to say.
Any questions of the speaker? Mr. Warren?
Sir, do you understand the difference between a conditional use and a zoning change?
Yes, I do. And the biggest thing is I asked Stan that question. What is the temporary? How long is this going to be? You couldn't give me an answer to how long this will be. That tells me 1 year, 2 years. You couldn't give me an answer. And to me, anything longer than a few months is considered to me a potential permanent change. I don't think that's fair to the neighbors. And I have 7 other, my wife and I wrote the letter, and we also had 7 other neighbors in the area sign that letter. And we didn't get to talk to everybody. We don't have time to go talk to everybody about this issue. But every single person we talked to agreed with us. So that's the thoughts of the neighborhood, and we don't agree with the zoning change. Not to mention the fact that what's the people from just building his trailer home without rezoning? He can build that without rezoning. We didn't have to rezone to do this. Anyway, that's all I have.
Any other questions of the speaker? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else like to speak on this item? Anyone else? Applicant, you got 2 minutes of rebuttal if you want it.
Mr. Barnes, I believe, wanted to know, thought I was too decrepit apparently to get out there in 2 minutes. My wife is in excellent health. I'm still in excellent health. My treatment is working, but I do 5 miles on the treadmill every morning. I'm in great shape right now. My wife also does 5 miles on the treadmill every day. She's in great shape. We can get out, one of us can get out there. If we reach the point where we can't, it will be moved to Kansas City. But our daughter has 2 kids in high school and a husband, and she's got a life, and this is to be, our family planning is to make it later, not immediately. Now, as far as Mr. Figurino, who said that, I can't remember what his objection was. What did he talk about?
Okay.
Trying to think of what he complained about. Mr. Figurino, what was your objection?
To the rezoning.
Oh, the rezoning. Okay, I don't have any control over that. That's all up to you. Last night we invited the Figurinos over to our house to sit at the kitchen table with us and try to discuss this. They refused to sit down, but my wife and I tried to discuss it. He at the end of the discussion, he said, well, why did you try to involve the county? It's your land, you can do with it what you want. You didn't need to involve the county. Our response was, well, we're law-abiding citizens, we're trying to do things by the book. We're not trying to pull any stunts or anything. We're just trying to provide for our son.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you. Bring it back to the commission. What's the pleasure of the board? Mr. Warren?
We've, over the last year or two, we've had a number of properties with accessory apartments, and this is a lot less intrusive than that and a lot less permanent. This is a temporary situation. And based on the size of the land and the situation here, I don't see an issue that would cause detriment to the neighbors in any way, shape, or form. And so I move to approve as presented.
Second.
Second.
Got a motion approved by Mr. Warren, second by Ms. Foster. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh.
Aye. So sorry, sir. Scott Weedle again from the Planning Department. And just one clarification that has been part of the conversation, I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page, is that there's been discussion about the term and how long this would last in terms of duration. And part of that discussion has been that if the property, there's been mention that if the property is sold, that this this ability, this conditional use would go away. I just want to point out that that is actually not in the text of the staff report as I read it as part of the conditions. The conditions, there's currently one about if it's gone for a period of 30 days or more, I believe, that then it would be declared null and void. That is condition 4. But there's nothing that I've read that deals with the sale of the property. And so I want to turn it over to Kathy Morgan for a clarification on that.
I believe that, I know that we had discussed this, and I think this staff report was copied and mailed out before that comment was added about.
So therefore, if you do want that, that's been part of the conversation, if you want that as a condition, then you would have to add that as part of the.
Yes. Thank you for catching that.
Conditional uses don't normally follow with the, I mean, is a general rule, do conditional uses expire upon transfer? So this would, conditional use normally would go with the property.
Run with the land.
Fine with that?
We're going to get some attorney stuff.
Warren, Justin Wagner, Assistant County Counselor. I think to help address this, I think you're correct that that's, the property change doesn't by default into conditional use. I think that if that condition that Scott Wadle just mentioned was added to this, I think the use within the conditional use would extinguish or be nullified if that condition was added as part of the property transfer. And I think there were some statements by the applicant, but it also might be a good idea for the Planning Commission to ask the applicant if they would object to that condition being added as well, just for the record.
That was going to be my next move. If the applicant would come back to the podium, please. It is your intent and your desire that this conditional use expire upon your sale of the property at the very latest?
That's absolutely, that's
Then
what we wanted to do.
Okay, then I would make that a.
I also thought of Mr. Figurino's question. He demanded an answer to how long this would go on. And my answer is, I don't know how long I'm going to live. If he can tell me, fine,
Okay.
I'll tell him.
For simplified purposes, not to muddy it too much, my motion is going to be that it would be allowed until they sell the property. That would be my motion, that conditional use would last until that point.
I'm actually not sure that's necessary, but if someone else wants to second, that would be fine.
Second.
Okay, we got a revised motion, second by Mr. Warren, second by Cindy Miles. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? Next case, please. That is conditional use 2021-00047 and a zoning case 2021-00015. And this is the one that I think there's a new staff report on that matches up what the DAB approved. Is that correct, Matt?
Yeah, that's correct. I can go into it briefly. Matt Williams for planning staff. This case, the applicant is requesting the rezoning of one zoning lot from SF5 to B multifamily. Here's the subject property is in black. The northern lot is the zone change property. The lot is currently developed with a single family home. It's been converted into 4 living units, a garage that's been converted into 1 living unit, and an accessory structure that's been converted into 1 living unit. According to the applicant, these 6 units had existed for years prior to the applicant purchasing the property. The subject property is at 1239 North Mathewson. The 6 living units on the property is not in compliance with the single-family zoning standards. Rezoning the lot to B multifamily would bring the property into zoning compliance, except for the 8 off-street parking spots that would be required. And that's why the applicant is also requesting a conditional use to allow a parking area. Can you move forward to the slide that kind of shows the 2 sections? With the green and blue box, should be in a couple. So the applicant is requesting a conditional use to allow a parking area on the zoning lot to the south. That lot is currently undeveloped. A site plan included with this application depicts a 40-foot by 70-foot parking area on the rear of that lot that would be used for parking for the adjacent lot to the north. That parking area would be accessed via the existing alley. That property would remain zoned single-family and could be developed with a single-family home closer to the street. Approval of that conditional use and the zone change would bring both lots, or would bring that northern lot into zoning compliance. The lot to the north of the subject property is zoned single-family and has a single-family home. The lot to the south is vacant and zoned single-family. And then lots to the east and west are zoned both single-family and B multifamily, and there's a mix of single-family and multifamily residences. One part about the case history that might be a reason for why this is a multi-unit house but is zoned single-family is that it used to be zoned B multifamily, and then in 2004, following the recommendation of the McAdams neighborhood plan, the property was rezoned to single-family 5, as well as a bunch of properties in that area. It was a large rezoning in order to better reflect the existing land uses. My guess is this has happened in the past, and speaking to residents at the DAB the other night, the property might have been vacant at the time. They might not have realized it was a multifamily unit, and so it got downzoned from B to single-family, and now we're working out the issues that resulted from that. This zone change and conditional use is in conformance with our community investments plan and the Wichita Places for People plan, but it is in conflict with the McAdams plan. The McAdams plan recommended to limit this area to single-family owner-occupied housing, and so because of that, we worked with the applicant to come up with this solution with rezoning the northern lot and getting the conditional use for the parking on the southern lot, recognizing that we don't want to reduce the number of potential affordable housing units on that northern lot that are already existing. Based on this, staff is recommending approval of the zone change, subject to the protective overlay, and this protective overlay is new. It's in your staff report. These are the conditions that the DAB recommended be placed on it. Basically, the conditions are that northern lot be limited to a maximum of 6 units, which it currently has, and limited to a maximum height of 35 feet. That's just in case that property was to be demolished at some point or deemed not worthy, and they were to build something else on it. We're also recommending approval of the conditional use to allow the parking area, subject to the supplemental regulations in the code and the conditions in your staff report. I will say that the DAB recommended approval with those conditions. There was there were questions about if the applicant who applied for this is actually the property owner. I'm sure you'll be hearing that here in a few minutes. We've checked the GIS multiple times that shows the property owner of record, and it is the applicant, as we always check, but just so you get a heads up for that. If you go to the next slide, we can look at some of these photos. This is showing that it's within the McAdams neighborhood plan. Next slide. That is the map from that plan indicating that it's appropriate for single-family detached owner-occupied houses. Next slide. Here's a little bit better depiction. So you've got the property on the north with the green box around it and the 6 existing units, and then the conditional use for that parking area to the south that would be accessed off of the alley. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. This is the existing house that has been apparently vacant for several years. Next slide. The property to the south that's vacant. Next slide. The home to the north. Next. To the south. Next. And then these are the properties across the street. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff? Mr. McKay?
The units across the street, are those multifamily?
Yes, those are multifamily and zoned multifamily.
Mr. McKay?
How can we put restrictions on a piece of property that's not in the subject area, like the lot to the north.
Say that again?
One of the conditions the DAB came back with is that we limit the property to the north to 6 units.
Well,
In case the building's torn down, how can we?
Well,
how can we
it's
do that?
limiting the lot that's being rezoned.
Excuse me?
It's limiting the lot that's being rezoned.
If something happened to those buildings, they could rebuild them back to 6 units. No more.
Yeah, sorry. So.
Is that right, Matt?
Yes, yes. This is a subject property. There's 2 lots here. So the northern lot has the 6 existing units. The southern lot is where the parking area would be. But because it's a single family, the DAB wanted to recommend that it could be rezoned to multifamily, but it had to be limited to 6 units, which there's 6 existing now, but if they were ever removed, they wouldn't want more than 6, and they wouldn't want higher than 35 feet, which is what the limit is for single family.
Any other questions?
This may not be relevant, Matt, but are there existing code violations on this house or any assessment of its viability for families to live in it?
My understanding is that when it was purchased, the applicant went into the house to remodel it and get it ready to live in, and then they went to get building permits. That's when it was noticed that there were too many living units. So it's my understanding that there's going to be a renovation, but that was also a worry that what if it was deemed the property couldn't have people in it and they had to rebuild it. That's why they wanted to limit it to 6.
Any other questions? Seeing none, applicant or agent?
I did see the applicant online earlier.
Yes, sorry, I have an update. He has just arrived. The applicant was online and had left. I just called. He has just joined just this minute.
Okay.
Carlos, are you there to speak on this case?
Yes, I'm here. Give us your name and address, you got 10 minutes.
Exactly, I don't know exactly what I gotta say, only not tell me I have to join the meeting.
Yeah, do you have, we just kind of explained the request that you have, and this is just your opportunity to say anything else that you might want to about the case.
Well, I think the order I'm requesting, a parking lot is because we have the property I have next to this vacancy lot, and I see for my interest to, add on a parking lot, and I'm trying to use this vacant lot to add in a parking lot.
I believe he said that it's in his interest to add the parking lot on the south so that he can renovate the existing property on the north.
He never gave his address.
Comments?
Carlos, are you in agreement with our comments about
Yes.
the conditions that the northern lot be limited to 6 units and a height of 35 feet?
Yes.
Any other questions, the agent or applicant?
Get his address. Did we get this?
What's your address?
Carlos, can you give us your address just for the record?
Give me a minute. Twelve 1223 North Matt Whitson.
Okay,
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
No.
Is there anyone else who want to speak on this item? Please come forward and give us your name, address, and you got 3 minutes.
Janet Reddick, 1510 East 9th Street, President of McAdams Neighborhood Association. The applicant on this really name is Ruben Guzman. And I've called Metropolitan Planning Department about Ruben Guzman coming in our neighborhood, tearing our fence lines down and moving property. He has a property right now, right behind me, that's built in the alley of that. I know he owns this property for a fact. I know he owns this property right here. I asked Matt the day at the DAB board, was it the Guzmans? He assured me it wasn't, but I just saw Ruben Guzman on your thing up there, and that's how I ran down here, because I knew, the thing is, he's in our neighborhood building $250,000 houses, but he's coming and tearing our fence lines down. I gotta right now go spend $500 to get a survey because he moved his property on my property. So I gotta go get a survey because he's done that. He's done it to a few people in our neighborhood. I've showed a few Metropolitan Planning Departments that. I've called you guys at least 10 or 15 times of what he's doing in our neighborhood. I think you need to protect our neighborhood from builders like this. We shouldn't have to go spend money because of what he's doing. Build, but build according to the neighborhood and respect the neighborhood. Any questions?
Any questions?
But this is not the owner. The real owner is Ruben Guzman. I kid you not.
So what you're saying is the person you saw on the screen speaking as Juan Carlos Mena Olmos is known to you as Ruben Guzman?
Yes. The only reason why I ran down here to this, because we did go to the DAB board meeting, and we agreed to some things, but I asked Matt, I said, is it Ruben Guzman? He said no. My husband said, Mr. Guzman is on the thing. I know it's him for a fact. I know it's him. I saw him on the property. I know when he bought the property. I know when he's buying every property in the neighborhood because he's disrespectful to the neighborhood. Very disrespectful. He parks and he leaves his equipment on the street. He drinks on the where he's at. He does a lot of things that's wrong to the neighborhood. He got money, build, but build according to the neighborhood and respect the neighborhood, no matter how you feel about us. I've shown a couple of Metropolitan Planning Departments what he's doing. I own Phyllis Wheatley. He tore my property fence down. So I told him, you're not going to treat me that way. So he gave me 5 feet and said, you can have all that property right there. On the other side, there's a house. He is 2 inches from their driveway. 2 inches. You know that's not right? I know that's not right. It's not right what he's doing. Just because he got some money and can build in the neighborhood, it's not right. It's not right.
Any other questions, Speaker? Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else want to speak on this item?
John Reddick, 1510 East Ninth Street. One thing to add, we called the number on the piece of paper and it's not a working number. And we would just like to stick to the single housing. I was under the impression that there is apartments in there, but I didn't know that the McAdams plan was to have owner-occupied dwellings, and that's what we'd really like to see, because with rental properties comes a lot of problems. You're putting a big cement pad for parking, which I believe will be a congregation place. These people that's connected with this man sit and drink. If you want to come out and look at Phyllis Wheatley, there's beer tabs all over our property. I've asked him, he's confronted me. I could have had him arrested, but I chose not to for that day. I don't know what this is going to bring, but we stand up for McAdams. We're proud of McAdams. We want, as the plan was written, 2004, hasn't changed. Some people have passed away, but we're in line for it now. We have a church right there on Mathewson and 9th Street. We're trying to do good for the community. Like I said, Mr. Guzman has been disruptive to the neighborhood. He don't care. And I know that he owns the company or owns the property. He's just trying to fly underneath somebody else because he knew we'd be here today. And that's about all I got to say, but I wish you'd object to it and stick with single housing. That's all I got to say.
Any questions, Speaker?
Were you a part of the DAB meeting where you agreed to
Yes.
the conditional, or the conditions that were being presented
Yes.
today?
Yeah.
Okay. So you, with conditions placed on him, you are comfortable?
No, not
No.
now. Not
Okay.
now. Since I see Mr. Guzman in attendance, I know he's behind this. And if you call the number on the applicant, it's not a working number. He just using that. I don't know why, but, and he lives right behind me. I sold him the house. I wish I'd never done it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Didn't you just call the number to get him back on the line? Was that the number you called?
Yes, noticing that he was not online, I looked up the application in our case management software, and there are two phone numbers listed. And one starts with the prefix of area code 316. Another one starts with 785. They both have the same numbers. I was able to reach Mr. Carlos at the 785 area code phone number. So I'm not sure what happened there, but we've got two numbers for him, and they're essentially the same numbers, but with different area codes, and the one with the 785 area code worked for Mr. Carlos.
Okay.
I am Carlos Mena.
Is there any other speakers want to speak on this item? Seeing none, but you say he's not on the line now?
He is now, sir. It was right before the case, right as it started. He was not.
Mr. Carlos, you got 2 minutes of rebuttal.
I don't understand what these people is talking about. I think I need more explanation saying I'm not the owner for the property. I confused exactly. I don't know what's going on.
Mr. Chairman, sorry to be speaking so much during this meeting, but Scott Wadle from Planning again. And while this conversation has been going on, I have been looking at the GIS system, Geographic Information System, and the county information does show Mr. Carlos is the owner of the property. So the applicant name that you see listed on the staff report is the same name that's showing up in the county property records as the owner.
Any other questions, Carlos?
All I want to say, I bought this property probably 2 years ago. And I don't know these people who is talking about this other guy. I don't know exactly. I have all the records. I have everything recorded in the city, the deed and everything. All the documentation is done by the security title company when I buy this lot or land.
Is it your intent to renovate this property to 6 rental units or to a single-family dwelling?
When I buy this property, it's already the way it is. I'm not doing that. Only doing a TLC. I'm not added it. The way I buy it is 4 units in the main building and 1 in the back what is burned when I buy it.
Okay, thank you.
And only as remodeling. I'm not adding anything new, anything different.
And you're saying that you do not also go by the name of Ruben Guzman?
No. I have all my legal name is Juan Carlos Mena Olmos. And I bring my ID, my social, everything to the city or whatever is needed. I don't know these people who is talking about.
Thank you.
Did you buy the property from Mr. Guzman?
No, can I give all my paperwork and everything? I have everything do it in the city, no problem. I don't know exactly this guy or name. I don't know who is this person.
Scott, can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
So, Scott, what has changed between the time that the neighborhood plan was created and this property was rezoned to a single-family zoning, and between then and now that we should turn around and now allow it to be changed back to multifamily?
Yes, excellent question. And from the looks of it, it looks like Matt is prepared to answer that one, so I'll defer to him.
Ms. Miles, I wasn't here when the McAdams neighborhood plan was initiated and carried out, but I do know in Delano, when there was a large rezoning that occurred, is the planning department sent letters to all of the property owners saying, you know, your zoning is higher, we want to lower the zoning. So in this case, this property was zoned multifamily, and they wanted to come in and rezone all of the properties that were not actually multifamily properties. They wanted to rezone them to single family. And in Delano, they sent out letters to everybody, and you kind of had to opt out of it if you didn't want your zoning to change. I'm guessing from the sounds of it at the DAB meeting the other day, this multifamily unit was sitting there vacant and unused, and it got rezoned because it didn't appear to be a multifamily unit. That doesn't mean that it has to be.
Or Matt, another interpretation would be that even if it was occupied, that the owner at the time did not choose to opt out, then it was a legal non-conforming use. And so it has been in existence in this state for quite some time.
Correct.
And that now that there's a new owner who wants to do improvements to it, that they're seeking to have the rezoning in order to get it in conformance with zoning.
So have we allowed other properties in this area to be converted back to multifamily?
I think, this is Scott Wadle, and from my time here, no, we have not, but I think the staff deliberated on this case for quite some time. This is a challenging one, and for us, I think the difference was that the structure is largely, it's been this way for quite some time, and so this is an opportunity to get back into conformance and no longer a legal non-conforming use.
But the neighborhood plan, as far as the wishes of the neighborhood plan and the planning around that, that same plan is still in existence? Nothing's changed about that neighborhood plan?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
Matt, did the DAB vote on this?
Yes, the DAB voted on it. It was, the vote was to recommend approval with those conditions about height and the number of units. And just to clarify, the 6 units are existing on the property now, so it's not going to be converted into 6 units. The 6 units are currently existing.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, bring it back.
Yeah. Was it a unanimous vote of the DAB?
Yes, I believe it was.
What's pleasure of the board?
Did you say that it was unanimous by the DAB board
Yes, I believe it was.
with those conditions? I'll make a motion that we approve, subject to the recommendations and the recommendations of the DAB board.
Motion by Mr. McKay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Foster seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Warren?
There's a hesitancy in my heart, and I don't know where to pin it. I don't know what the, there's some things that just don't feel right about this one. That but I got a gut feeling, and gut feeling doesn't fly legally. But I've got an uneasiness about this one that I don't know what to do with it.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, if this property hadn't been existing the way it is presently, when the staff made the comment a while ago when the Delano was done, every owner had the opportunity to leave the zoning the way it is because it was just like this, all over the board. Could be that this is an absentee owner didn't get a notice or didn't pay any attention to the notice and just let it go. And that's how it fell into where single family, even though there were 6 units there. And that's basically one of the reasons why, if you want me on my motion to add that, once these properties, if those 6 properties go away, then they can't build apartments back in there again. I don't, if that can be done or not. Only problem I have with this is the separate parking to the south, having to go through an alley to get to the parking.
I'm going to offer up a substitute motion to deny.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion by Ms. Miles, second by Mr. Florence to deny. Any discussion? Yeah, Mr. Warren?
I have a question for Cindy. Why denial? I need a reason. I'm looking for reasons to vote for or against. What's your reason for denial?
One of my big concerns is that we put these neighborhood plans in place for a reason. And they're supposed to be those are supposed to be guiding plans for development. And I'm concerned that if this plan was put in place for a reason to guide that development, and maybe because there have been some issues in the neighborhood, that if we start stepping away from this, it won't just happen this one time. We may see that neighborhood decline again, and I'm not willing to support that possibility.
This is existing use already, so they're not changing anything. And I think if we take away this case that the buyer here has, he's getting harmed by this because he may have bought this with the intention of, keeping it as 6 units. So I don't see how I can't vote for her motion. As much as I don't like the way things are going.
You said that the 6 units existed, but in the pictures I see on here, the only thing that looks like it could be 6 units is across the street to the east. I don't see where there's 6 units on this property now.
Can you go to the slide?
On page 2 of the staff comments.
Page 2?
Yeah, this image up that's on the screen right now shows that the single-family house is split into 4 different units. And then there's an accessory apartment at the back of the property, and then there's a garage that was converted into 1 unit.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will vote on the substitute motion, and I think we need a roll call.
Yes, sir.
Can I clarify? So the motion is to deny, so if we say aye, we are denying? Okay, just being clear.
All right. Bill Johnson.
No.
Fox.
Aye.
McKay.
No.
Gross.
No.
Green is absent. Jewell.
Aye.
Blick. I believe Blick is absent. Nix.
Aye.
Foster.
No.
Warren.
No.
Joe Johnson.
No.
Miles.
Aye.
Hartman.
No.
Florence.
Aye.
There were 5 in favor, 7 against. Motion
So
failed.
that motion fails. So now we'll hear the first motion. Do we need a roll call on it? Let's do
Can
a
we
roll
restate
call.
the motion?
I believe the motion was to approve per staff comments in the revised staff report.
Yes.
And is the DAB conversation included in that motion?
Yes.
And also per the DAB recommendation, that's correct. Yes, sir. Thank you.
I have one question, because I was the motion maker. Is there a possibility that because it's existing property, it can stay in its existing way, but if it ever changes, it has to go back to single family? That's probably a legal question. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking to the legal for help on that one.
I was hoping to get out of here today without a pop quiz, but didn't quite happen. Jeff Van Zandt, Assistant City Attorney. To do that, you would have to have what be like a springing interest in the property, where if it failed to continue with this, it would revert back to an SF5. I don't think you can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Answer my question. You could have done that from the chair.
Wouldn't have a chance to hobble, but
One thought to that effect is I'm trying to get clarification on if this is a legal non-conforming use already, which would allow it to operate without the proper zoning. The issue, and then the reason why it was brought up to us is because of the parking issue, because the site does not have the adequate parking that's needed for the number of units. So therefore, the need for the zoning case for the approval.
What'd you say?
So the question I had was whether it was a legal non-conforming use. The challenge is that the gentleman, the owner, has sought to get building permits and has been denied because he does not meet the zoning requirements for the off-street parking spaces. And it's zoned SF5 and it's multifamily. So that's kind of recapping the need for the case. But I think that gets to your question, Mr. McKay, which is, can there be a condition that would make it go away if it was approved? And generally, that's what a legal non-conforming use is. But in this instance, they can't make improvements to the property unless they get the zoning that's required for it.
Okay, let's
Okay.
take a roll call.
Roll call for the motion to approve, subject to the revised staff report and DAB recommendation. Bill Johnson?
Yes?
Fox?
Yes, and I'm just backing off on what I said before, but I just want to say that the DAB having approved it with conditions makes it really hard not to just say, okay, then let's go.
McKay?
Yes, and the reason why I made the motion is because it's existing.
Gross?
Yes.
Green is absent. Dool?
Yes.
Blick is absent. Nix?
Yes, but only because of the DAB. Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Warren?
Yes.
Joe Johnson?
Yes.
Miles?
No.
Hartman?
Yes.
Lawrence?
No.
I have 10-2.
That motion approved. Any other non-public hearing items? Any other matters? We're adjourned.